Story 1. Recently, I found a new job that I really enjoy. For a while, I worked both my old job at a restaurant and my new one until I could fully transition to the new position. A few weeks after quitting the restaurant, I went back to pick up my last paycheck. At the time, the restaurant was only offering takeout orders, like many places during that period. I went to the cashier station, and my friend, who was working there with just one cook, was the only employee present. While she retrieved my check from under the counter, we chatted about my new job and how things were going. Suddenly, the kitchen staff called out, "Order up," and the sound echoed through the empty restaurant. My friend went to grab the order while I waited at the front, standing beside the cashier station, not behind it. At that moment, a car pulled into the handicap spot in front of the restaurant. I immediately noticed the driver didn't have any visible stickers or a placard to park there. I recognized the driver as a customer from my time working there. She was the quintessential Karen. Every employee at the restaurant despised her because she was constantly complaining and rarely left tips. She often came in with a couple of other entitled women, running the servers ragged for hours and then leaving without tipping. She even once made a new waitress cry. Seeing Karen pull up, I quickly tried to slip to the back to avoid any interaction with her. But before I could leave, she spotted me and recognized me from when I worked there. Here's how the encounter went down, though I'm paraphrasing since I was so angry at the time. Karen, red in the face, screamed, "I want a refund. I'm so fed up with you all not knowing how to do your job." I tried to keep calm and responded, "Let me get someone to help you." She wasn't having it. "No, you will give me my money back right now. I'm never coming back here again. That girl said she checked the order, but it's wrong. I was here a few minutes ago and ordered grilled catfish, and there's no tartar sauce. How am I supposed to eat fish without tartar sauce? And I never got the Dr. Pepper I paid for." Karen was visibly furious, and I could feel my own anger rising. She continued, "And I drove here twice already. I want money for the gas I wasted." Trying to stay polite, I said, "Okay, let me go get someone to assist you," though I admit my tone was snappier than before. I don't appreciate being yelled at like that. Of course, she noticed and immediately started cursing at me. Just then, my friend came out from the back and asked what had happened. Karen started screaming at her, so I quickly went to the back to get a tartar sauce and made her a Dr. Pepper. When I returned, Karen was still demanding a refund and $50 for the gas she supposedly wasted, which, let's be real, was a massive exaggeration. She insulted my friend and continued to claim that I had been rude to her. At this point, I'd had enough. Years of dealing with difficult customers like her had built up, and I saw this as a rare opportunity to finally give someone like her a taste of their own medicine. After all, what could they do? Fire me? I didn't work there anymore. I said, "Nobody here likes you. You are the biggest problem customer I've ever met." She stared at me, wide-eyed and in shock. I continued, "Do you really think it's okay to come in here, never tip, and treat everyone like they're worthless? Why are you always so nasty? Do you think you're better than everyone else? I'm sorry your life is so miserable that you feel the need to put others down constantly, but you are a bully. Here's your tartar sauce and drink. You can shove it up your—" Well, you get the idea. I set the tartar sauce and the drink down on the counter. Not going to lie, I seriously considered throwing the drink at her, but I restrained myself. Then, without giving her a chance to respond, I grabbed my paycheck and walked out. I think she was too stunned to say anything. Probably no one had ever spoken to her like that before. Later, I told my boyfriend about the incident, but before I could even finish the story, the owner of the restaurant called me. He asked me to apologize, but I firmly refused. As a result, I'm now permanently banned from the restaurant. My friend later told me that after I left, Karen threw a massive fit, screaming for the manager and threatening to call the police. I'm honestly glad I didn't throw the drink at her because that could have escalated things further. I felt a bit bad for leaving my friend to deal with the aftermath, but she told me she was thoroughly entertained by the situation and even wished she could have cursed her out too. Reflecting on it, I realized this had been building up in me for a long time, and I finally snapped. Honestly, I don't regret a single word I said to her. Story 2. For context, I, a 24-year-old male, am the oldest of 7 siblings. My mother, 42 years old, female, just announced that she is pregnant with her affair partner's, now husband's, baby. I have a well-paying job, no children, and live with my boyfriend who also has a well-paying job. I'm not wealthy, but I do have some disposable income. Because of this, I like to spend a lot of it on the 3 oldest of my younger siblings, an 18-year-old female, a 17-year-old female, and a 14-year-old male. Throughout the story, I will refer to them as siblings 1, 2, and 3 respectively. I admit that I pamper them more than my other siblings. My mother has complained about this before, but I gave her my reasons for it, and also, it's my money, so I can do whatever I want with it. My boyfriend and I had been planning a summer trip to Europe, and I wanted to bring siblings 1, 2, and 3. I told them about the trip, and they were, of course, super excited. I also wanted to make it very special for my oldest sibling because she recently graduated high school and is now attending a prestigious university. So I told her that she could bring a friend. The trip is in 3 days, but we plan to pick up my siblings and her friend today so we could all go to my boyfriend's mother's birthday party and celebrate all my siblings' recent accomplishments. I went to my mother's husband's house a couple of hours ago to pick up my siblings, and my stepsister, 15 years old, female, was there. For more context, my mother got remarried less than a month ago, so I've only ever interacted with this girl a total of 8 times. Here's the dialogue of what happened, with M being my mother, S being stepsister, and S1, S2, S3 being my siblings. As we were leaving, stepsister: when are you guys coming back, and why do you have so many bags? Sibling 1: 2 weeks, we are going on a trip. Stepsister: really? To where? Sibling 1: Europe. Stepsister: for real? Can I go? Me: I'm sorry, the trip was planned months ago. It's too last minute. Mother: why can't you take her? Your flight doesn't leave for another 3 days. You can get another ticket. Me: it's way too last minute to add an extra person. Mother: you have 3 days. Can't you buy another ticket? Me: it took me months to plan this. Adding another plane ticket and hotel room is going to be much more expensive now. Mother: if you have money to bring sibling 1's friend, why can't you bring your sister? Stepsister: wait, your friend is going. Sibling 1: yes. Stepsister: why can't I go then? Me: sorry, stepsister. I planned for this trip before my mom even married your dad. Stepsister starts crying for no apparent reason. Mother: see, you made her cry. Can't you just bring her? Why can't she go instead of sibling 1's friend? Me: Mom, this is an early birthday gift and congratulations on getting into a top 20 university present for sibling 1. I'm not going to cancel on her friend. Mother: so? You need to put family first. At this point, I got really angry at my mother because she put me on the spot and blamed me for making stepsister cry. Me: I barely know stepsister, and she's barely even family to me. If anything, sibling 1's friend is more family to me than her. Also, it's my money, and I don't have to bring a minor I don't even know on a trip across the world. Mother then starts crying and pulls the "how can you stress me out like this? I'm pregnant" card. I also switched to my native tongue because I felt bad about what I said in front of stepsister and don't want her to hear the other things I have to say. Me: I honestly don't care about you being pregnant when you shouldn't even be pregnant at 42. Mother: you need to treat all your siblings the same, and it's unfair to single out stepsister. Siblings 1, 2, and 3 don't deserve more than your other siblings and stepsister. Me: stepsister wouldn't have even felt singled out if you hadn't made it such a big deal. Also, siblings 1, 3 are all fully related to me, and they have been in my life for 14 plus years. I just met stepsister a month ago, and am not even related to her. I of course love my other siblings, but maybe I wouldn't have to spend money on them if you didn't have so many other children. Siblings 1, 2, and 3 do deserve a lot more because they have helped me raise our other younger siblings. Something you couldn't do because you were too busy having more kids and arguing with Dad. At this point, I just left with my siblings. We kept arguing about the same things. The whole drive to sibling one's friend's house, my mom was calling and texting me non-stop. When we finally got to my boyfriend's mom's house, I called her back, and she started yelling at me, saying that she is going to tell the police I kidnapped her kids. I shut her up by saying I have text proof of her agreeing to let siblings 2 and 3 go on the trip, and that if she even tries to escalate this further, I will go to the authorities with all the neglectful things she has done to her kids. I have proof of most of these too. Story 3. This happened several years ago, and it still makes me shake my head when I think about it. To give you a little background, I'm just a regular guy who happens to have diabetes. I don't let it slow me down, but sometimes life throws surprises your way. One of those surprises came in the form of an encounter with a rather aggressive Karen at my local coffee shop. Grab a coffee because this story is something else. It started like any other morning. I had a craving for iced coffee, so I headed to my favorite spot, Brew Haven. The place wasn't too crowded, and I joined the line, waiting for my turn. While standing there, I overheard a woman at the counter complaining about her latte being too foamy. She had the telltale signs of a Karen: oversized sunglasses indoors, a haircut that screamed entitlement, and an air of superiority that practically filled the room. Finally, it was my turn to order. I got my usual iced coffee and a slice of blueberry pie, my personal weakness. I couldn't resist it no matter how hard I tried. With my order in hand, I settled down at a corner table, ready to enjoy a quiet moment. That's when Karen stormed over, her eyes locked onto my pie like a predator spotting prey. At first, I thought she was just admiring it, maybe considering ordering the same thing. But I was wrong. "Excuse me, that pie was meant for me. They gave it to you by mistake," she said. I chuckled, thinking she was joking. "No, I ordered this. Maybe you should check your receipt." Her expression hardened as she tapped her foot impatiently. "Listen here, I need that pie. Hand it over." I raised an eyebrow, astonished by her audacity. "This is my pie. If you want one, I suggest you go back in line and order it." That's when she lost it. She began ranting about how entitled she was, claiming she deserved the pie more than anyone else and how the world was against her. People around us were starting to take notice, and even the barista behind the counter looked exhausted by her behavior. I tried to defuse the situation. "Look, I'm not giving you my pie. They have more left. Just go order one." Then came the curveball. She suddenly narrowed her eyes and accused, "You're just pretending to have diabetes so you can eat all the sweets, aren't you?" I was floored. "What? Are you serious? Lady, I'm wearing an insulin pump. I have type 1 diabetes." "Prove it," she sneered. I wasn't about to pull up my shirt in the middle of a coffee shop. "I'm not showing you my pump just to satisfy your ridiculous demand." Things took a wild turn from there. Without warning, Karen marched over and grabbed my insulin pump, ripping it off my waistband. Panic hit me instantly. That pump is crucial for managing my blood sugar levels. "Give that back," I yelled, feeling the anxiety build. She held the pump up and smirked. "Let's see if you're really diabetic." I was desperate now. "Lady, you're going to mess up my insulin settings. Give it back." Ignoring me, she started pressing random buttons on the pump, completely unaware of the damage she could cause. At that moment, I didn't know whether to call the police or just scream for help. Suddenly, a calm voice interrupted. "Is there a problem here?" It was a police officer who had been in line for his own coffee. Karen turned, still holding my pump like it was some kind of trophy. "This man is faking diabetes, and I'm proving it," she said, triumphantly. The officer glanced at me, confused. "Is that true?" I took a deep breath. No, officer. She just grabbed my insulin pump, and I really do have diabetes. The officer's expression changed from confusion to seriousness. Ma'am, give him back his pump immediately. Karen hesitated for a moment before reluctantly handing it over, but she wasn't done. Without warning, she kicked me in the leg, right where my pump had been attached moments ago. Pain shot through me, and I winced. The officer's eyes widened, and without wasting a second, he said, "Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault." Karen's smug expression vanished as the officer handcuffed her and read her rights. The other customers were staring, some even whispering about the drama that had unfolded. As the officer escorted her out, a few people applauded or made sarcastic comments in her direction. The barista, looking apologetic, brought me a fresh slice of blueberry pie on the house. "Sorry about all that. Enjoy your pie," she said. I managed a weak smile and thanked her. But as I sat there, pie in hand, I started to feel off. The stress had taken its toll, and my blood sugar was spiraling out of control. The next thing I remember was an ambulance pulling up outside the coffee shop. Paramedics rushed in, checking my blood sugar levels and giving me a stern look that said, "We've got this." Before I knew it, I was in the back of the ambulance, speeding toward the emergency room. The was a blur of machines and medical staff as they worked to stabilize my blood sugar. I couldn't help but think, all this over a slice of pie. After a while, things began to settle down. The doctors reminded me to manage my stress better, as if avoiding encounters with Karens was something I could control. They patched me up, and I was finally released with instructions that made little sense to my exhausted brain. The next day, 2 police officers showed up at my door to ask if I wanted to press charges against Karen. Given everything she had done taking my pump, nearly putting me into a diabetic coma, and physically assaulting me, I decided, yeah, I think I will. The officers assured me they'd handle everything and left, leaving me with a sense of justice served. Pressing charges against Karen wasn't as satisfying as enjoying a slice of blueberry pie, but it was a sweet end to an unbelievable day. Story 4. Here's a little bit of backstory. We had our usual group of 6 kids age range from about 12-16 who come in every weekend and cause problems in the theater, that is, be on their phones at the front of the theater with brightness at maximum, listening to music or TikToks, yelling at each other, running or fist fighting. We call them Friday kids. This has gone on for the 3+ years I've been here, and ever since I've gotten promoted to management, I've really started cracking down. The old managers used to just let it go and not worry at all. But as color staff, I had to deal with the uproar that they cause, so I don't want my employees to have to deal with that. It's just not fair to the people or the employee. I've gotten to the point where I would give a single firm warning and then have to escort them out. They still weren't getting the picture, so I've gotten rid of their warning privilege and just resorted to kicking them out 3 years. They know the rules. Anyway, I digress. So that brings us to today. It's opening weekend for Birds of Prey Bop, and they are trying to get in. Entitled Kid, Bop is out today, right? Allie. Well, yes, but seeing as none of you are 17+, I can't legally let you in. I'm sorry, guys. Entitled Kid 1. That's nonsense. Give me 6 tickets. Allie. Entitled Kid 1, I'm your neighbor, and I know you're only 12. Entitled Kid 1, muffled voice, racist jerk. Allie, excuse me? Me? What's going on? Allie, they want to see Bop. Me. No, I'm sorry, but you have to be at least 17, and I know that the oldest one of you all is 16. Entitled Kid 2, I'm 17. Me. Do you have a school ID so I can verify that? Entitled Kid 2, why would I show you? Me. Then no. This went on for at least 15 minutes, and eventually we got them to settle on Gretel and Hansel. This was to my dismay because that movie is still relatively new, and I knew it was busy all day, and I did not want to deal with dragging them out again. Me. Hey Allie, can you go on door and make sure that the Friday kids don't jump into Bop? and let me know if we get a complaint from Auditorium 4 pertaining to them. Allie, sure, no problem. Me? Thanks, I'm going to be in my office. I have to set up the shows for next week. Not 20 minutes go by, and Allie is in my doorway asking for my help with the Friday kids. We have had 4 complaints, and the kids were yelling at each other, saying some pretty obscene things that you wouldn't expect from a young group of kids. That is, using racial slurs and derogatory terms like I said. Obscene? Sorry, just had to show you what I meant. I don't like typing things like that, let alone hearing that some kids are yelling that over a relatively small, quiet movie. I walk in, and just like clockwork, I see the phones waving around, the terrible conversations, and kids jumping over the several $1,000 chairs. Me? I'm going to need help. Hey Allie, can you give me a hand? This is going to be a fun one. Allie, that bad today? Me. Oh yeah. We walk in and give them all the usual, hey guys, you gotta leave. We've talked about this last week. You can't be doing that here, spiel they get every week. Entitled Kid 1. What did you just say to me? Me. Hey, get out. I'm trying to be polite about it, but I won't have you talking to me that way. Entitled Kids 2-6 start saying that it wasn't their fault and that they were being framed by someone in the auditorium. Reminder, I caught them red-handed. Allie, you guys heard him. Grab your things and follow us out. Begrudgingly, we get Entitled Kids 1-5 to get up and out to the lobby where I was going to give them the talk about how they can't keep acting like this because it's not polite to the other patrons. When I notice Entitled Kid 6 take off her shoes and socks and sink further into the chair. At this point, I've had enough of this and called my general manager to see what I am allowed to do in a situation where a person refuses to leave, to make sure I was in the right, so I did what he instructed. Me. Hey Entitled Kid 6. Entitled Kid 6. What, you skinny jerk? Me. Well, that was uncalled for. I asked you to leave. I'm sorry if you weren't directly to blame, but you can't stay if you're part of that group, which I know you are. Entitled Kid 6. Make me. Me. Okay, get up and follow me, or I have to call the police for trespassing. Entitled Kid 6. Geez, fine. No need to cause a scene. Allie, you've already done that. Once I get out of the theater with Entitled Kid 6 and Allie, Entitled Kid 1 comes up to me with his cell phone. Entitled Kid 1. My mom wants to talk to you. Me. No problem. Hello, me speaking. Entitled Belligerent Mother. Why did you kick my baby and his friends out? Me. Well, I kicked them out because they were being a disrupt. Entitled Belligerent Mother. Nonsense. My baby is respectful and you guys are just racist. Me. Ma'am, I don't care about that type of stuff. I kicked them out because I have had several complaints, and now because they've made such a scene in the auditorium, I have to give emergency passes to the entire theater. Entitled Belligerent Mother. This happens every week. You're targeting my kids. Me. Ma'am, I'm not targeting your children. It's just with a track record like they've made, it's just become a recurring issue. I'm sorry, but they clearly don't know how to behave in this type of environment. Entitled Belligerent Mother. Are you calling me a bad mother? Me. I assure you, ma'am, I don't mean that. It's just that I feel that they shouldn't be swearing and fighting in my theater. It's just not fair to the other guests. Entitled Belligerent Mother. That's it. I'm coming down there and crashing through your entrance and hitting you with my car. See how you like us then. Last year, I got into a very bad car accident that has fractured and misaligned my spine. I'm still healing from that, and her saying this triggers a bit of my PTSD. Me. Excuse me, Massachusetts am. I don't believe you mean that, and if you do, I'm going to have to report it as a threat to not only the theater, but to your children, myself, and my employees. Entitled Belligerent Mother. Yes, I did mean it, you inconsiderate person. I write down the phone number, and when I calmed down, I prepared an incident report. Me. Well, ma'am, if you want to be like that, your children will be waiting near the entrance, and are no longer welcome back in this establishment as long as I am here. Entitled belligerent mother. Fine, be like that. I'll be in 20 minutes to kick your behind. Me. See you then. I hang up the phone and give it back to the kid. Entitled Kid 1. What did she say? Me. She's going to run me over with her car, and you guys are never coming back here. Now get out of my theater. I have no more patience for you guys today. Entitled Kid 2. Where will we go? Me. See those doors there? There's another set that leads outside where you can wait for your mother to show up. It's heated in there, so it won't be too cold. Entitled Kid 4. That's illegal. Me. No, it's not. I'm officially done dealing with you. Go. As you can tell, at this point, I was not very happy. I tried to keep my cool and didn't raise my voice, but I was done with the shenanigans. 2.5 hours later, entitled belligerent mother finally shows up to get her kids, and one of the kids comes back in saying that his mom wanted to talk to me. Me. Is she in the car? Entitled Kid 4. Yeah. Me. Tell her to come in, and I'll talk to her where I know I'm safe. Entitled Kid 4. She wants corporate's number. Me, being 100% done with this, says, tell her I said nice try. My general manager at this point has come in to see what was going on and was standing next to me when I said that. General manager, why didn't you give her the number? Me. I'm not endangering myself to hand out a piece of paper so someone can yell lies to my superiors. General manager, sounds fair. Story 5. Before I became a manager at another location, I worked in a store with a mechanic who made a mistake that, while against the rules, ended up being blown out of proportion. He was out on a road test in a customer's car after completing some work and stopped at a shop to buy something. According to company policy, it was against the rules to use a customer's car for personal use, even during a road test. The mechanic knew he had broken a rule, but didn't think it was a big deal. In the past, a situation like this would have most likely resulted in a verbal or written warning. However, the new manager, who was fairly new to the role, decided to take a more formal approach and initiated a full disciplinary meeting. The mechanic, being highly productive and a key asset to the company, didn't expect such a formal response. He asked me to accompany him to the meeting as a note-taker, which was allowed, so I agreed. Beforehand, I tried to speak with the manager and suggested that the issue could be dealt with more informally, but the manager insisted on following the process and expected everyone else to do the same. I spoke with the mechanic to get a full understanding of what had happened and realized that the investigation had been mishandled. The next day, we arrived at the meeting, which included 2 HR representatives who had traveled a long way to attend. I told the mechanic to follow my lead as we navigated the situation. During the meeting, the manager went on about what had happened, explaining that the customer had seen the mechanic stop at the local shop to buy a drink. He spoke at length about the rules and procedures that had been broken, going on and on without pause. After a while, I asked if we could take a short break, and HR agreed. Once we returned, the manager decided to bring in another mechanic to confirm their understanding of the policy. This mechanic stated that they knew the rule, but I interjected, saying I wasn't sure if everyone was as informed as the manager claimed. One by one, the other mechanics were brought in to be questioned, and the meeting dragged on. The manager, appearing smug, seemed pleased with how things were unfolding. After some time, I requested another break, which HR again granted. I intentionally made the break longer, letting them wait for about 20 minutes before we reconvened. By this point, one of the HR representatives was getting frustrated with how long the meeting was taking. They turned to the mechanic and asked directly, "You knew the rules, and you did stop off, correct?" The mechanic admitted, "Yes, I know it was wrong, and I'm sorry for breaking the rules." The HR representative looked surprised and asked, "Then why did you deny it earlier?" The mechanic responded, "I never denied it. He never asked if I had done it, only that he had to follow the process." The second HR representative asked, "Wait, no one asked you for your side of the story." The mechanic replied, "No, he didn't." At that moment, it was clear the HR representatives were not pleased. I had to look down at my notes to avoid laughing as the situation played out. In the end, HR decided to issue a verbal warning, which would go on the mechanic's file, and that was the end of the matter. They thanked me for my participation, and we all stood up to leave. However, the HR team asked the manager to stay behind. As I closed the door, I overheard them giving the manager a hard time for wasting everyone's time. The next day, when the manager ran the productivity report, it looked terrible due to all the time the other mechanics had lost while giving their evidence. I can only imagine how he explained that to his superiors. After that, he avoided HR whenever possible and never asked me to follow the process again. Story 6. Backstory. This happened when I was pregnant while serving in the Navy and had been assigned to a limited duty station. The office where I worked was filled with other pregnant or injured sailors, along with a few supervisors who were, frankly, unpleasant to the pregnant women. Their assumption was that we had all gotten pregnant on purpose to avoid sea duty, of course. At the time, I was the most senior pregnant woman in the office, which meant I was knowledgeable about my rights and unafraid to call out any unfair treatment. One of our requirements was to participate in PT physical training 3 times a week, within the bounds of our physical limitations. For pregnant women, this meant no sit-ups, push-ups, jumping jacks, or prolonged standing or walking. Running was at our own discretion. Typically, we were allowed to do any form of exercise for 30-45 minutes, including stretching and using yoga balls. We had requested to attend a pregnancy yoga class at the gym, but were denied because it started at 10 a.m., which was considered the middle of the workday, leaving us 30 minutes of unproductive time before lunch. For the most part, we were left alone, but there were instances when the supervisors, all men, would insist that even women who were 7-8 months pregnant participate in activities like running in the rain. I was usually able to shut these ideas down quickly, but it didn't make me popular with the supervisors. Regardless, I always had documentation to back me up. As I entered my 3rd trimester, my anemia worsened, and I began experiencing severe lightheadedness and tunnel vision. Even though I never called in late and always made it to work on time, I could only manage light exercises like yoga ball workouts during PT. One morning, I started feeling dizzy and slipped off the yoga ball. While I was sitting, trying to regain my bearings, my direct supervisor, whom I'll call Jerk, grabbed my shoulder and began yelling at me to get off my butt and do PT, along with some other remarks about how pregnancy wasn't an excuse for not participating. Once my vision cleared, I stood up and explained to Jerk that I couldn't continue PT. I even showed him my medical chit, which clearly stated that I was allowed to rest as needed. Jerk wasn't interested in my chit and told me that I wasn't allowed to sit during PT. If I wanted to sit down, I should go to medical. Cool. I asked one of my colleagues to take me to medical, but Jerk started yelling that I needed to get myself there. I calmly told him that I was on the verge of passing out and was in no condition to drive. I informed him that if he wouldn't allow someone to take me, I would call an ambulance, which would, of course, trigger an investigation and involve paperwork for him. Reluctantly, he agreed, but he made it clear that I'd have to find my own way back. I was driven to medical and explained my situation at the OB/GYN desk. After some blood work and a consultation, I was ushered into the office of the OB/GYN department head, who had overheard my story. I told him about the dizzy spells and the past attempts by my command to force pregnant women to overexert themselves during PT. The doctor raised an eyebrow and told me that he was very familiar with the gym we used for PT and that it was considered a hazard zone for pregnant women due to the proximity of basketball courts, which were too close to contact sports. He also informed me that any command requiring pregnant women to participate in organized PT needed to submit a PT plan through the chain of command, involving several senior chiefs, officers, and the captain, for his approval. He printed out the relevant pages from the Naval Instruction Manual, highlighted the key sections, stamped and signed them, and attached his business card. He told me to give these documents to Jerk and have him call if he had any questions or could show proof of an approved PT plan. The doctor also gave me a new medical chit that allowed me to rest at member's discretion and only perform work that member feels she can safely perform. This was particularly important since they had been having me lift heavy boxes and handle live equipment. The blood work confirmed that my iron levels were dangerously low, so the doctor increased my iron dosage and gave me a week off work to recover. I was then driven back to the office by the duty driver. When I returned, I was immediately called into the chief's office and reprimanded for being late and missing PT. Jerk, standing smugly in the corner, had conveniently failed to mention that he had sent me to medical. As the chief scolded me, I placed the paperwork from the doctor on his desk and calmly explained that Captain Obgin, department head, would like to see our command's PT plan for pregnant women. I handed him the business card and suggested he give the captain a call if he had any questions. Jerk, looking at the highlighted sections, asked, "You would actually go this far?" I replied, "I don't know what you mean. You told me to go to medical, so I did. This is what they gave me. It looks like there's a naval instruction that we need to follow. Oh, and here's my new medical chit and a leave notice for the next week. I'll see you next Wednesday." From that day on, the pregnant women in my office were allowed to do PT whenever they wanted, as long as it was 3 times a week. We were also finally permitted to attend the 10M pregnancy yoga classes. Surprisingly, work productivity didn't drop because, believe it or not, we were capable of getting our work done, regardless of when we started. As for Jerk, he was now responsible for all the heavy lifting and electrical work until someone without medical restrictions joined the team. All the women had received new medical chits, signed by Captain Obgin, department head, specifically preventing us from doing such tasks, with the relevant naval instructions highlighted and stapled to the chits.